Welcome to the Somos Sunnyside podcast, brought to you by the Communications Department of the Sunnyside Unified School District. Thank you for tuning in while we share stories about the bright side of education.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Somos Sunnyside. That's right, we are Sunnyside, and I'm your host, Jose Castellum, the proud superintendent of the Sunnyside Unified School District. So we are here today at Sunnyside High School, Blue Devil Nation. That's right, big shout out to all our Blue Devils out there, and we're live, we're here. My favorite kind of show, we're here talking with students. We want to hear about their journey, their pathway, and where they're headed. So we're going to get started right off the bat here, and I want the students to introduce themselves. I'm sitting with 3 seniors. So we are days before these students cross the stage and receive their diploma. So eager to hear about, their story, their experiences, and really to our listeners, hopefully we have some incoming freshmen that are listening to this, our middle school students, other high school students, and equally importantly, some parents. We want our parents to listen in and to get some good advice from these young students. So let's get started with introductions, and I'm going to start here to my left. So Abigail, introduce yourself, please.
All right, hello, my name is Abigail Hernandez. I am a senior at Sunnyside, and I am a recipient of this year's STEM scholarship. I will be attending the University of Arizona in the fall with a dual major in physiology and emergency medicine. On campus, I am involved in swim, tennis, and EMS. I am also part of our Native Voices Club, and I am involved in many dual enrollment classes.
Dang, that was good. That was so good. So, did you rehearse that, or did you just kind of rolled off the tongue? Dang. All right, let's go with Pamela here.
Hi, my name is Pamela Romero. I've been in Sunnyside District for the last 13 years now. Graduating this year and attending Kenyon College in the fall, located in Ohio. And this year I'm a proud recipient of the Victoria Teresa Arias Memorial Foundation Scholarship. I am involved also in many things here at Sunnyside, including EMS like Abigail, folklorico here, taking many dual enrollment and AP classes, and I'm ready to end the year off strong.
Awesome. And last but not least, we got Edward here.
Hello everybody, my name is Edward Machado. I am a senior at Sunnyside High School. Next year I plan to attend the University of Arizona, where I will study mechanical engineering. And here on campus I am involved a lot. I'm in student council. I am proud to be the president of the National Honors Society. I'm also in the board of directors for my automotive CTE class, and I feel like that's really where my spark for just using my hands and getting dirty like engineering came from.
All right, awesome. So just some great introductions here, and I really want to talk a little bit about your journeys, your experiences. I mean, obviously you guys are all so well spoken. You're prepared. You're ready for the next transition, right? And so that's for you guys. This is college. It's university time, and so we got 2 future Wildcats, and then we got Pamela that's headed to Kenyon College. Mm-hmm. Kenyon, what's their mascot?
An owl.
Kenyon Owls, and you said that's in Ohio.
Yes.
So you ready for that weather change?
I'm ready to experience all 4 seasons finally.
Okay. So, awesome. Well, they may have 2, but I'm only kidding. But you are gonna have some cold weather there. But it's super exciting. I think when our students take that risk of going out of state, I really like to hear that, because there's a lot to learn, right? As you leave T-Town, as we call it, right? As you leave Tucson. And so, I wanted to talk a little bit about, first, share with the listeners, when was the first time you thought about, hey, you know what? I better have a plan. Let's just cut right to it, because I think, I know when I was in high school, I was kind of a knucklehead, and I really didn't think about how school was going to be paid for. I was very fortunate that I got offered a baseball scholarship, or I probably wouldn't have went to college, to be, super honest here. But at what point, did you think about this when you started as a freshman? At what point did that light bulb turn on and say, you know what, I really need to start thinking about grades, GPA. I need to start thinking about applying to college, and it becomes just real, right? Real and real quick. And so, any of you jump in. I'd like to hear from each of you of when that was, how you experienced that.
I could start us off. I think the first time I ever realized like how important pursuing an education was probably in like third grade, when my tata, he would always talk to me about like how he told us a story, and I overheard, actually I eavesdropped on the adult talk. He was kind of just like, I don't know how to say it, like venting, I guess, to my mom about how he never got to go to college. His dad never really provided him those kind of opportunities. He went through a very unfortunate events in his life where he had to focus on work instead. But he's like a really curious man. Like if he wants to know about something, he'll look it up. He likes to learn, and I can see it. And I think I got that passion through him. Like I always like to ask questions. I like to stay educated. And having the opportunity to do so here, like I live in Tucson. I live within these 3 schools. But I think the plan to go out of state, I got in the 6th grade. I kind of always just wondered what else was outside Arizona. And I figured out that out of state was possible. I thought when you go to college, you had to stay in your state. Like I thought you had no other option. But my dad told me it was possible, and they never like closed those doors on me. I've been able to fly out to many colleges this year, thankfully. And they never like said, oh no, like you can't do it, like we're scared, or like that you aren't able to. And I think since 6th grade, I knew that it would take a lot of work to get there, and I had to like set my mind on it, but I'm there, so.
That's awesome. So you got a lot of encouragement, right? Are you a first generation college going student in your family?
My dad went to college.
Okay. So second generation.
Yes.
Good for you. And I think like so many other students in our district, in our community, we do have a lot of first generation, right? And I love hearing that story, because I think sometimes our parents, always our parents want the best for students, right? They want the best for their children. Sometimes they don't know how to communicate that because they haven't had that experience, right? Yeah. And so, I think of like your tata, you're talking about your tata, sounds like a very smart individual, very curious individual, as you explained. Probably would have thrived, in a college setting, but just never got the opportunity. So it reminds me of like when we grew up with my siblings, my parents would always say, agarra una carrera, estudia. They would give us encouragement, but couldn't tell us how to do it. They didn't say, make sure you fill out that FAFSA form, and make sure you do college visits, and make sure you explore this and that. So, but it's that's what it takes. It takes that first generation, and then it gets contagious. Then that second generation goes, and then the third generation, or if you're first generation, it's your siblings that follow next, right? And so, I love hearing that. So let's hear from Abigail and from Edward. Same question. Tell us a bit about your experience. When did you start thinking about college? When did you realize, like, hey, I need a plan here?
Yeah, well, I can't compare to Pamela because she was thinking all that in 3rd grade. I feel like...
I know, pretty early, huh? Yeah. I was probably watching, like, SpongeBob or something right around that time, right? Okay.
But for me, I feel like I would have to say my freshman year. To be honest, my transition from middle school to high school wasn't the best. I didn't really want to try in school. Not that I didn't care about it. I just wouldn't like take honors classes or go all above. And my freshman year, I ended up joining Trio Upward Bound through my sisters, because they kind of forced me like under their wing. And I feel like just joining that program, it really did open my eyes, because growing up, we never really like went anywhere. Both my parents are immigrants, so they're like, how they are, scared, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So I never really went anywhere, and through Trio, they took us to San Diego on a trip over the summer, and then that's when I realized I was like, I can do like all of this through school. Like this is all possible for free if I just like actually try. So my sophomore year, I actually like started signing up for AP classes, honors, and then just the college path sort of formed.
So when did you learn that grades were important for scholarship opportunities, right? Because I think sometimes we have a lot of students that don't understand that grades are accumulative, meaning that your GPA adds up from freshman to senior year, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that the higher the GPA, probably the more scholarship opportunities you get. So when did you realize that? Because again, I was that student that said, you know what, I'm just going to kick butt my senior year. I'm going to get good grades my senior year, and everything's going to be all good.
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know, it all accumulated. Your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior grades, accumulate, and then you have weighted, GPA with the honors and AP classes and stuff.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about when did you realize that played a big role?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that would just be the year right after, so sophomore year, when I actually started putting in the work, and I realized, like, wow, I threw all of this away because my GPA isn't, like, the best that it could be, and I still regret it, like, to this day. I'm still, like, thinking back, I should have, like, tried more my freshman year. But.
So, a message to those incoming freshmen that grades matter. As a former principal, I'd always try to tell them, it's the grades that come out in December, that come out in May. Those are your semester grades, and that's what gets posted on your transcript. So, you got to be consistent. It's just not that first month of school when you have all A's. It's the report cards that get printed and transcribed onto a transcript are December and May, right? All right, Abigail, let's hear from you.
So my story was very similar to Pamela's. So for a long time, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of like tried everything out. And then once I got to high school, it was my grandparents also who really pushed me, because I saw like the jobs they had and the life that they had, and how that's not what they wanted when they were younger. Like, they wanted to go, they wanted to make an impact. They wanted like all these great things in life, but like we had kids really young, or like we couldn't pay to do opportunities that I have access to now. So when I like started as a freshman, I was like, okay, like I'm really gonna apply myself. I'm gonna like try everything I get my hands on. I did a lot of stuff, like from journalism camp to like working at the zoo to like taking a lot of PIMA classes and like what interests me and stuff. And so that was like my education journey. And then this year I was really like, what do I actually want to be? Because for a long time I would just say like, oh, I want to be a doctor, but like I don't know what. So it was like neurosurgery, and then it was like anesthesiology. But once I started taking EMS here, I was like, I really like how fast-paced everything is, how like unpredictable EMS is, and this is something that I can see myself going into.
Gotcha.
And so that was something that I wanted to do, but I also realized, it's not a practical degree. It's going to take a long time, and like I want to be able to pay for my life. And so I originally wanted to go nursing, so I got in the U of A's nursing program. But once I was awarded stamps, I was able to change my major, because that gave me the opportunity to pay for college and like have access to become a medical student one day.
Wow, what a story! And so I think I know, Abigail, you weren't a Sunnyside student through elementary and middle. You came to us from another district we won't mention, but we know ours is better. And so you landed here at Sunnyside. A big shout out to Mr. Cootie. I heard you talk about EMS. So what brought you to the Sunnyside Unified School District? Because I also want parents to hear this, because it's never too late to transfer over to Sunnyside, And so, Pamela and Edward, you guys were here K-12 or pre-K-12, which is awesome as well, because it just shows that, Sunnyside students can thrive. But I want to hear a little bit more about Abigail, your transition of why Sunnyside, why did you come here of all the different high schools in town? And coming from another district. So tell us a bit about that story.
Yeah, so it was like a very risky jump. I actually just transferred here this fall, so as a senior. So I was really scared. I had a lot of like pros and cons. Like, do I want to stay in my district? Like, I have a lot of friends here. I was involved in so much. Like, I was president of my school's like student council. I was president of National Honor Society over there. So for me, it was like, I really want to try something new. Like, I want to get out, because I wasn't like, how do I put it?
You wanted something better.
I wanted to try other things. I wanted more opportunities and more access. And I kind of saw that through the district. Because, this district has people who, like, get Flynn. Or, they get Dorrance. Or they get all kinds of scholarships.
So you were paying attention to that.
I was paying attention to that.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of thinking, like, what school is going to support me the best?
Yeah.
Because I was, thinking a lot about U of A. I did Keys over the summer, and I was no one from my school has like really talked about like pursuing like a better education and stuff.
And we had former students that had done Keys in the past.
Keys is
too.
great. I love Keys.
Yep, it's a great program at the U of A. I love that piece of that you're talking about, that you paid attention to those scholarships, because those are some pretty prestigious scholarships. And we've had, Gates Millennium Scholars and Dorrance Scholars every single year, and so that is a big shout out to our high schools and Sunnyside and Desert View for preparing students. And so, it's let's talk a little bit about your stamp scholarship, because from what I understand, it's $400,000 scholarship. Let me say that again. $400,000 scholarship that allows you to study abroad. I love that piece that you talk about, like, boom, you shifted when you found out you were a stamps recipient. You said, well, hey, now I can be a doctor. You went big, and you should, and I think all students, although I know you think of the financial responsibility, you should be able to dream big, right? No matter what, there's always a way to do it. And I know nobody wants loans or anything like that. I'm glad that you were able to make that connection to say, you know what, I am going to go for being a doctor, So talk to us a little bit about what that process was like, because I know the stamp scholarship is very competitive. And, from what I understand, you nailed it. So tell us a little bit about that for our listeners to hear that.
Yeah, so the process, there was 6 different steps to it. So the first main step was getting into the U of A. And U of A made their admissions a little bit more competitive this year. So I know people who didn't get in U of A, even though they had great grades. So that was an accomplishment to everyone who got into U of A. And then it was the Honors College. So you had to get into that, and then they invite you to apply for stamps. So the invitation, you fill out like an activities resume and an essay. And then there's 4 interviews that follow them. So 3 interviews with the Honors College and 1 interview with the program itself. And each time it gets a little bit harder. Like, the first interview is like, tell us about yourself. The last one's like, what would you do with your like study abroad money?
With $400,000.
Yeah. So
super cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, that's such a major accomplishment. So Pamela, I know you are the Victoria Teresa Arias recipient. That is a $40,000 scholarship, and that is, often there's only a couple students across town that receive that scholarship. I believe 4? Is it 4 of them? 4 students. Shout out to Mike and Lorena Arias and the Victoria Teresa Arias Foundation, for putting that out and always supporting Sunnyside students, right? Sunnyside Unified School District students. And so tell us a little bit about that, because I happened to be here the day you were surprised with the scholarship. And it was such a cool moment that, when you called your mom and you told her about it, and just to get her honest reaction. And I can sense the orgullo, right? The pride she had, and just being so happy for you. And so, I think those moments are like those surreal moments when it's just like, boom, this is actually happening, right? When you hear the news of receiving your scholarships. And so talk to us a little bit about that. The other thing is, how did you hear about it? What made you apply for it? I know you're involved in Folklorico, and, shout out to Mr. Baca and what he does for students. And so I'm imagining he probably told you about it, but who knows? I don't know. Tell us the story.
Yeah, well, I found out about it my sophomore year when my friend's sister, actually, Allison Castillo, she won the scholarship.
Yep, I remember
and
Allison.
So, yeah, and I guess I got inspired through her. She really encouraged me to apply for it too. And yeah, Mr. Baca has a poster on his wall of Victoria. And so I kind of did more research into the Arias family, and they seemed like really amazing people, and they are really amazing people, Mike and Lorena. I consider them family now. Their vibe was just really welcoming, and I loved everything that they stood for. And I guess what made me apply for it I was really scared because only 4 students won it, so I had a lot of doubt. That I was not going to win it. There's so many people like me that are going to probably apply and do better. So as the date got closer, I was really doubting myself, but I still put in my all to the essays. It was 3 essays.
Wow,
that
3
you had to
essays.
Write. Yeah, it was 3 essays that you had to write, and the prompts were really creative. And I think that's what I liked about the application. They weren't just the typical what school are you going to, or why are you applying kind of thing. It's kind of they made you think a little deeper and personally. Gotcha. Yeah, and when I was applying to college, I received great financial aid through the outside colleges, the out-of-state ones. Mm-hmm. But there's still stuff I had to cover, and Mike and Lorena were able to do that for me. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that, they have faith in those students. Mm-hmm. They have faith in like teenagers. Well, you're giving teenagers $40,000. That's like a lot of trust. It's kind of like all kind of expenses, whether it be my plane tickets to the college and back home, paying off my semester because this adds on to my other scholarships, so I might be able to even keep some of that for myself. But I like everything that they stand for and being able to pursue a higher education just like Victoria would have.
We're going to break to a quick commercial, but we'll be right back with some more thoughts from the Sunnyside Blue Devil students.
You will love SUSD. Don't believe us? Just watch. In Sunnyside Unified School District, students dream big, learn boldly, and grow confidently. From hands-on STEM and arts programs to student athletes earning athletic scholarships, Sunnyside District gives every student a place to shine. Enrollment for the 26-27 school year is now available. Enroll today at susd12.org.
So, as you are talking about this great scholarship opportunity, and this is called the Estrella Scholarship, it's a Victoria Teresa Arias Estrella Scholarship, again, worth $40,000. And I remember 4 years ago, Ariana Tabanico was the first recipient, and she's a Deja Vu grad, and I believe she's graduating from the University of Arizona this year. And I know she is because, I received an invitation to attend her graduation. And so you are the fourth recipient from the Sunnyside Unified School District. Last year, I believe it was Prashant and then Allison Castillo the year before. And I hope I got all those names right. But, it's this trend that, we want to continue, and as you said, I know Mr. Mike Arias always says, or Mike and Lorena Arias always say, welcome to the Torrey family, right? And so they got deep roots in terms of, it feels like a family, a familia, and they look out for all their recipients. And so I know you're going to be heavily involved with that, and they're going to be eager to hear your story. And again, what are you studying?
I plan to study neuroscience and hopefully major in Spanish and minor in philosophy.
Okay, neuroscience, major in Spanish. And that's the AC turning on. We're not outside, there's no wind, but, that's the AC. So neuroscience, majoring in Spanish. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so Edward, you are the recipient of the Wildcat Excellence Award that basically it's a full ride scholarship, basically, right? And so I can imagine just the stress levels coming down because your school's paid for, right?
Yeah. Well, my original plan, I was selected as a finalist for the Dorrance, but unfortunately I didn't get it, and I was a little bummed out about that. But with this scholarship, still I can still go to school, so I'm not too sad about it. I'm not losing my head over it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just an honor to be even considered, right, for Dorrance and being interviewed, and unfortunately, they only give so many of those away. But we're confident that you're definitely on your way. And so, I think what I want to shift to is I always want to hear from our students to share a message with incoming students. If you were a freshman all over again, if you were coming to Sunnyside all over again, what advice would have been good for you, right? What would you want to hear, or you can go off the cuff in terms of what message do you want to just give students, right? As whether they're incoming freshmen or whether they're underclassmen here at Sunnyside High School, what is a good piece of advice for them?
I would say try your hardest to find your family, in the sense that I know that there's a lot of people that get super close through sports or through clubs or through certain classes, but as long as you find that group of people that is perfect for you, that you consider your family, I really feel like that's the main experience in high school that you should be looking for, just to make those relationships with people and being able to rely on others at such a young age. I feel like really does build character for the future and for how you can communicate with people.
That's great advice. Great advice. Abigail, Pamela, any advice for students or any comments?
I would say my advice is to not limit your ideas, because I feel like a lot of times we can get stuck in a cycle of I'm not good enough, and that's going to play into your grades, your classes, your performance, and sports if that's what you're interested in. And not to limit your dreams either, because I said, for a long time I didn't know what I was going to do, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but here I am. And I would just say keep pushing yourself. You know, you can accomplish anything that you want to do as long as you put the work and time into it.
You know, that's so true, and you often hear it, right? It's a simple answer of just work hard, get it done. Like, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. You hear that so often, but you know, students have to find their drive, like what motivates them, you know, what inspires them, what keeps them going, and what helps build your confidence, right? Because you're right. Anybody, you know, I look at college like, hey, if you want to be successful, you keep going. You work hard and you keep going. You don't give up. You know, there's resources out there. It's different than high school, right? So you're going to have to advocate a little bit for yourself. You're going to have to demonstrate those agentic behaviors and be resilient, right? But I think all success comes with a little bit of resiliency. And so, you know, you remind me of something, and I bring it up often, you know, in the podcast is this piece of imposter syndrome, you know, where people talk themselves out of it. They don't believe they're good enough, and they just somehow, you know, don't follow through. And so it's so important that, you know, to know that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, and there's different paths and of how to get there. And so, you know, it can be done. And Sunnyside kids can do hard things. So, Pamela, tell us a little bit about your advice to students.
I think something I would have liked to hear more is like to get out there and don't compare yourself. And by getting out there, I mean it socially, academically, however you see fit, because I mean everybody's path looks a little different. By getting out there, you know, talk to people you've never talked to before. Find a new hobby, something that you'd never see yourself doing, because your time at school is limited, and I think that's like starting to hit us now. Like we're about to graduate in a couple days. Getting out there, making friends, like Edward said, is like something that you really need. Having that support system is incredibly important. Like personally for me, I don't think I'd be where I am today without my family and friends. And yeah, don't compare yourself to other people, to like how they look, like how they approach life, because we all come from somewhere different. We all have different values. You know, success can look different for many people, whether that's going to trade school, going to university, going out of state, joining the workforce straight after high school. You know, it's different for everybody, and especially how we get there. And I have little siblings who I really want to share this message to, that they are smart enough, they are enough to never doubt yourself. And you know, they might compare themselves to me, and I think I put that pressure on them a little bit, and it's something that you definitely feel bad about as an older sister. But the way that they're going, I see like bright kids, very incredible kids that I know will get where they want to in life.
Well, that's great advice for your siblings. You know, one of the things I want you guys to talk a little bit about is, did Sunnyside High School, the Sunnyside Unified School District, prepare you? You know, I want honest feedback about, you know, do you feel prepared to move on, right? I mean, you know, I mean, the 4 years here in high school go by fast, right? I mean, you've had different influences. You've had people that have been very influential, you know, whether that be a teacher, a counselor, a coach, you know, a folklorico teacher. And so talk to me a little bit about how Sunnyside High School prepared you for post-secondary opportunities.
Yeah, so I would say the teachers and staff here definitely pushed me past my comfort zone and definitely said, no, you can do hard things. I had a lot of teachers who told me, you know, this is not something that I thought about doing when I was younger. And I wish I had pushed myself harder. And so, you know, like, while that's hard to hear, it is great because it's showing you, like, you know, all these people are here to support you. All these people are, like, waiting for you to go on and do bigger and better things. You know, our counseling staff is amazing. Miss Redding and Mr. Sada are amazing to me. And so I think, like, their support and really advocating for me to have a better life and to have a better education, it set me up for whatever I could face.
Pamela, Edward?
I would say that, like, I completely agree. I just feel like the community that we've built here at Sunnyside is just so bound together. Like, there's not one student in this class that probably doesn't consider themselves close to a teacher. so they know that they always have someone that they can talk to. But truly, I really haven't seen anything like what this school has built up. I feel like I can just go up to any teacher and start a conversation with them, even if I've never talked to them before, and I know that they would go through with it. And I hardly notice anyone being rude, or for that matter, I've never witnessed someone really getting bullied, like even since kindergarten to now. Like everyone is just super respectful, and it's great, and I'm happy to have came from this community.
Awesome. And I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, being at the Sunnyside district for 13 years, I still walk with a lot of familiar faces, although some of us got separated during high school. But like Edward and I, we've been friends for like the past 12 years, and I think that's something like you carry deep with you. I've had the pleasure of having friendships since kindergarten. So I think, yeah, like he was saying, the community is incredible here. It's hard to get separated, and it's hard to like be mean to one another when you've grown up with each other. So, and the teachers here, like Abigail was saying and Edward was saying, they push you. Like they know you can do more. I think I remember my freshman year, Mr. Mahler, it was like the first time I've ever gotten like critical feedback from a teacher, and it humbled me real quick. So he was like I know you can do better than this essay, and you can do better than this like little idea that you had, like expand more on that. And it's inspired me to this day, like to always kind of push further than like what I'm limited to or what I think I'm limited to. So
and I think that shows a lot, you know, on your end too, because it's real easy to get that feedback and say, well, I guess I'm not good enough, right? I guess I'll quit. But, you know, I think you took the opposite, you made the opposite choice and said, hey, I can take feedback and I'm going to make it better, right? I'm going to prove him wrong. And here you are, right, today. And so, you know, any as we close here, any shout outs, you know, I always like to leave the floor open because I want you guys to have the opportunity to, you know, whether it's thanking family, whether it's thanking certain teachers, you know, that had an influence on you, any last shout outs, you know, that you want to end with here.
I would like to give a shout out to Mr. Ramirez, the automotive teacher here at Sunnyside. He's like the coolest dude I know. When I first joined his class, he was like super straight up with all the students, and he said, if you're in here and you want to learn, you're going to learn. If you don't want to learn, then you're not going to learn. And I feel like that really just spoke to me, because I was like, yeah, I want to learn. I want to learn about cars. And there was never once I asked him a question and he didn't help me, or there's never been like a time he hasn't double checked up on a customer car that I've done. So just shout out to him. He's a really good teacher. I can talk to him like if he's my friend. I've talked to him about personal stuff too. So it's just great having basically like an adult as a friend here in school.
That's awesome. Good. Big shout out to Mr. Ramirez.
Can I give two? Or?
You can. There's no limits here. You can give two.
I'd like to give a shout out to Mr. Vaca. I've been dancing in Los Diablitos Azules for 3 years, but in his program for 4. And Folklorico has honestly like helped me be a better person and like kind of strive for like that pushing more feeling, like I was mentioning. As well as the community that he's provided me, you know, compañeros de la danza son para siempre, like he says, and it's true. Like the kids, I've witnessed so many phases of this dance group, and it's incredible, and I feel like really in touch with my culture too through it. And I'd like to give another shout out to my dad, who has really inspired me throughout my entire, you know, education to my school career, I guess. I've seen what college can do for him, and he's always told me like never stop learning. Like I don't know how you're gonna do it, but never stop. And yeah, he did college the abnormal way, but I respect him for it, and I respect the man that he is and the man who showed me everything I know. So
good. I'm glad he'll be very happy to hear that.
Yeah, so for me, I also have two. So the first one would be to my siblings, because they are the ones who motivate me to do better, so that way I can provide for them one day and provide for their families and show them that they can accomplish whatever they want to do. And the second one would be to Mr. Cootie, because his class is so welcoming. He always makes you feel like you're enough to be in there. He makes you feel motivated. He pushes you to do things out of your comfort zone, and ultimately did inspire like my career choice and my major choice in the end. So cool.
I can't wait to see, 4 years from now, what you guys are doing, right? What you're working in, how you're contributing to your communities, whether it be here at Sunnyside or in another state. But, you guys have such bright futures, and we're so proud of you. On behalf of like Sunnyside Unified School District, our governing board, this is what it's all about, preparing students to have opportunities, and most importantly, that students feel prepared as they leave us, and so, I don't want to get corny with our vision and our mission and all those statements, but, you guys really exemplify what it is to be, college, career, and community ready. And so, we are super proud of you. And before we sign off, I want to say from one Blue Devil graduate to our future Blue Devil graduates here in a couple of days, we wish you the best of luck. So thank you. And that wraps up our show. And remember, once a Blue Devil, always a Blue Devil. You guys will hear that graduation speech. All right. Hasta la próxima. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Somos Sunnyside. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it entertaining. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and share our podcast with la comunidad. For updates on future episodes and more, be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website at susd12.org. We appreciate your support and can't wait to have you back for the next episode. Hasta la próxima vez en Somos Sunnyside.